No problem. You let me know, Sizzle. You happy with the mic positioning? It's not covering my face. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Today's episode is going to be a bit different. Yeah. Sorry. But it wasn't in the shot, right? Okay. Oh, okay. No, today's episode is going to be a bit different. I hope you guys are well. I appreciate you guys as always. But I'll just start with Dabini. I've got a few notes that I've written about some of the things that I just want to chat about. Nothing too deep. It's just me and you having an intimate chat together, sharing some of my thoughts, alternative, a bit controversial, but you'll allow me. Let me go through my notes. We've got an unemployment problem in South Africa, and at some point I wanted to do like a deep dive into the data, because I'm not happy with how the stuff is reported. South Africa, in my opinion, and I stand to be corrected, is incredibly data heavy. During COVID lockdown, we would have the highest numbers of people infected with COVID. Whenever they give HIV/AIDS data, South Africa is always like number one, if not at the top. When you look at things like unemployment and joblessness, South Africa is always at the top. And even now with crime stats, we're always there leading, one of the most dangerous countries in the world. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist or a genius who has traveled the world, different cities, different countries, to realize that the data is a bit weird. Because South Africa is actually a very nice country. And outside of concentrated areas, the country is relatively safe. Now, I'm speaking ordinary towns, I'm speaking many of the cities, villages, of course. The crime is not that bad. But now in concentrated townships, in concentrated squatter camps and informal settlements, it becomes a different story. But we are data heavy. We have about 63% youth unemployment, which puts us at number one in the world. I think number two would have like 40 something. This is a mind-blowing stat. Mind-blowing. And when you look at data like that, it would mean that if we have the highest youth unemployment, we should probably be the poorest country on earth. But we're not. Our people have houses. Our people dance every day, TikTok dance challenges. Our people are traveling the world, killing it in amapiano, acting, stand-up comedy, sports, rugby. Our football is doing well these days, our cricket. So it doesn't make sense with such high youth unemployment. Why are you guys so happy? Why are we not seeing children, babies with huge kwashiorkor stomachs and flies and snot and poor begging women dying on the side? Why are we not seeing that? I think it's because our data is misleading. I genuinely believe that Statistics South Africa, Census, and some of our data collection agencies over-collect. Now, I'm only saying this in the relative stance of the rest of the continent and the world. I do not think South Africa has the highest unemployment rate. And that was youth unemployment. I think our general unemployment rate is above 30% or above 40% if you include everyone. I don't think we had the highest COVID rates. I don't think we had the highest, or we have the highest HIV infection rates. I think other African countries, other poorer nations, I'm speaking now the bulk of Asia, I'm speaking Eastern Europe, I'm speaking almost the whole of South America and the Mexican part of North America. I don't think these guys collect statistics the way we do. And then we report on this stuff. And the guys who collect the information, the data analysts, the actuarial scientists, hey, these guys get excited with the reports they put together. I don't think other countries have that stuff. Now, part of the reason we have such high unemployment data is also because people lie. In this country, you are incentivized to say you're poor. You're incentivized to say you don't earn much. You're incentivized to go to the police station and lie on an affidavit in front of a commissioner of oaths so that you can gain access to social welfare. Now, on many parts of the African continent, that social welfare doesn't exist. So people have no incentive to go and say, I'm unemployed. Maybe in places like America, there might be overrepresentation, especially with minority groups like Black Americans, maybe the Latin Americans as well. But in many parts of the world, parts of India and the like, there's no incentive. In this country, if you say you earn under 3,000, if you say you don't have a job, if you say you're poor, the government can actually build you a house. A very nice 2-bedroom house that is worth over 100,000 Rand. You can say that and get access to world-class healthcare. I complain a lot about our public hospitals and our public clinics, but relatively speaking, man, the fact that you can get some of the best doctors in the world in our public healthcare facilities, you can deliver a baby, you can have top-class surgery. If you look at our tertiary institutions, King Edward Hospitals in Durban, Steve Biko Hospital in Pretoria, Tshwane, I think Groote in Cape Town. These are world-class institutions. How can I forget Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital, which used to be the biggest hospital in the world? Doctors travel from around the world to come and train here. Gratis. Pro bono, free. Close to 70% of our schools are mahala. And we can speak about the content of our education, but a child born in this country with nothing, whose parents have nothing, can go to a decent school where they even get fed, most of them. Free food. So there's an incentive. Now, this data that they collect doesn't align to the consumption of cell phone data, airtime, Wi-Fi, the amount of TikTok videos, the consumption of music. I just heard a crazy stat recently that in the 2024 year, I think it's over 1.4 trillion. The figure is probably not correct, but somewhere there. Over 1.4 trillion Rand was spent just in the sports betting, sports gambling space in South Africa. We're not speaking alcohol consumption. We're not speaking the people that use what we call public transport, which is taxis and buses. People in South Africa have money. The poorest people in this country wear branded clothing, whether it's counterfeit or not. Our SASSA grants, which are the people that receive social welfare grants, we've found out that a lot of them are lying. These are people that are working. They're selling food on the side of the road. They maybe operate taxis. They drive meter taxis in the townships, or they drive an Uber, etc., and they lie. But they still collect a 370 if you're between the ages of 18 and 65. Because under 18, you can get a child grant over 500 Rand, and over 65, you can get an old age grant, which is, I think, over 2,000 Rand. There are people that get paid from when they're born here. But then you have to ask, why do we publish these things, and to whose benefit? Outside of the beneficiaries, which is the social grant recipients, I do think there are people that make a lot of money. There was a company called Net1, which was making a killing of dishing out social grants. And not only at the time were they dishing out social grants, this was when Minister Ubatabile Dlamini was the Minister of, I think, Social Development, if I'm not mistaken. They were also giving out credit. They were also selling, I think, airtime. So they were giving grants, but at the same, and giving loans as well to people. They were making a killing. When you give money to people that are on social welfare, that money gets spent at spaza shops. That money gets spent at shops like Pep, at shops like ShopRite. Obviously, the alcohol companies make a lot of money. There are people that make a killing from social welfare in this country. Now, outside of this unemployment data, 63% youth, let's call it 45% real, general, and about 34% for people that are actively looking for work. The people that do work earn a very small amount of money because the median income in this country, depending on who you ask, but Stats SA is probably your best bet. And then next would be SARS data, our tax collector, the South African Revenue Services. You're looking at a median income of between 3,600 to 5,000 Rand a month. That's not a lot of money, especially if you can argue that you're taking care of 3 to 4 people in our home. We've got 7 million people, 7.4 million people that actually pay income tax who are earning over 7,000 Rand a month in this country. That means we've got about 12% of our population paying income tax. The other 88% don't pay income tax at all. That's close to 90%. And I'd raise the stat at a time when South Africans are complaining that undocumented immigrants don't pay tax. Yes, they pay VAT like every other South African. But close to 90% of South Africans are not even paying income tax. We're not having the right conversation. Unemployment data, which is good for political propaganda and fuel, and is good for ramping up votes. We will get you jobs. I think jobs and land was the one campaigning argument for the EFF. I think even when Jacob Zuma were campaigning under the ANC, it was all about jobs. And I remember Iposa pulled on South Africa, Yamusi Maimani, Nonobuntu Hlazo Webster. One of their major things was that we're going to create 2 million jobs in South Africa. Jobs are not the thing. If you look at this data, 62% youth, 34, 45, we take a step back to before British settlers and what would become Afrikaner settlers and others would come into South Africa. We would have officially 100% unemployment back when we were tribal Africa. When you go to the villages, a young boy who herds cattle, a family that has livestock and that works the fields, when census comes around, when Stats SA come around, and they are asked if they have a job, they say no. The idea is not to have a job, because a job means you work for someone else. That's what a job is. You know, I joke with many of my friends who run their own businesses, many of my friends who are multimillionaires, some are billionaires. And we always joke when we're having lunch, like at a fancy restaurant during the week. We'd say, we're not at work. And we're like, yeah, but we're unemployed, chief. We don't have jobs. We're not working for anyone. The goal was never to have a job, contrary to what politicians will have you believe. The goal was always to be able to sustain your own life. And how you sustain your own life, at least in the modern world, is through income. The conversation, at least from a political level, is meant to be about income, not jobs. And then outside of income, beyond politics and political sloganeering and electioneering, forget even the income. Do you have a quality of life? Because if you live in places like Coffee Bay, the Wild Coast in the Eastern Cape, beautiful huts overlooking the ocean, on luscious green grass, with livestock, beautiful cattle roaming around. Those people will tell you that, hey, we live on less than 1,000 Rand a month. And then the people that run UN Stats and Oxfam and all these other global entities that collect data will be like, oh, the poverty in the Eastern Cape, in rural Eastern Cape. They don't speak about the quality of life. Those people are not telling you that every day we go and we milk our cows, and that's where we get our milk. And amas, mpogoko, that they have with maize meal, uputu. They don't speak about when they feast, they slaughter ibhokwe, a goat, or imvu, a sheep, ischap. They don't speak about those things. They don't speak about how they built their houses using clay and mud and cow dung, natural resources from the earth. We don't quantify their wealth on how much land they have. Because when they ask, do you have a title deed? The answer is no. Oh, so you don't have land wealth? No. We don't quantify the value of a rondavel, of a hut. And you'll find some of these communities will have 10, 100, 500 hectares of land. But because it's not quantified at the deeds registry, it's not private property land that you can say the value of this land is worth 500 million. These people are poor. But going back to the modern world and income, we could kill unemployment tomorrow, at least in the South African context. We could kill it tomorrow. But we'll say, we'll give you a job if you're willing to get 500 Rand a month. But now you have a job. 500, I'm mlungwam. 500, I'm mlungwam. But I gave you a job. I you wanted a job. Here's a job. In the same way, I normally tell people, you don't really want land. Because I can get you land tomorrow. I'll take you to Newcastle, where I'm from. You go past town. You go past the big township there, Madadeni. You go past the second biggest township, Osizweni. And then we go to an area called Dix. Or you come before you enter the town. This is coming from Joburg side, by the way. I'm not speaking coming from Richards Bay. If you come from the Joburg side, before you enter Newcastle, there's places, Ingoko. Ingoko. 9 Mile. Those areas there. And then you've got Kilbachen. When you're going to Durban side, Ladysmith. There's so much tribal land there under Ingonyama. You can get a good hectare by thanking Induna, the chief, with 100 Rand if you have 500 Rand, 1,000 Rand. You can get a hectare of land for yourself. But people don't want that land. If anything, the people that live there will leave that tribal land to come and be security guards and domestic workers and taxi drivers and cleaners and work in retail stores like all. We speak about Big Zulu now, Nabo Osjava. In Donas, I say Bigville. That's tribal land, beautiful mountains. A Bigville, they Ukashamba. Abafana Benkabi Records. Those guys are here making music. But they've got gang land back home. Nemfuyo. But they're here in Joburg. And before they made it big, they'd be the guys to tell you, any job, any peace job, so people don't really want land. But similarly, people don't want jobs. People want a quality of life, which when it comes to an income level now, that's the real conversation we should be having. If you live in a decent-sized town, if you live in a decent-sized city, what is a decent amount of money you should be earning every month? A living wage, as they call it. And once you have that conversation, you might find that of the 15 million people that are working in South Africa, less than half of them are actually earning a living wage. So we should be speaking income. And we're not. We're speaking jobs. You don't need a job. You don't need a job. Most people are not even unemployed. If you are unemployed, if you are not working in the real world, it means you're just lazy. It means you wake up every day and ublome emakhoneni namajita. Nqokole nje. Shaya isicamtho. Nblomile nishaya inyawupe nishaya inkawuza anyone that passes by like ekusefeni mawusishaya nje nge2 rand upondo. Just isivuse nje for just icase le black. That means you're just lazy. Most other people are working. And the issue is their work maybe is not paying them. Uyavuka umagogo, uyavuka antiza, usisi wakho uyavuka ekuseni, bafrefe stoop, they're cleaning the house, they're cleaning the veranda, they're taking care of babies. They cooking, they're doing laundry. That's work. When you go and work for Madam in suburbia, that is a paid job. Some of Nale Intwane Blomima Konen, they act as security because if anyone does something dodgy there, they're the first to get up to go and get involved. The conversation we should be having should be, are you doing work every day? What work are you doing? I'm cleaning the house. I'm tending to the neighbor's garden. I'm babysitting children. I'm teaching Lighties how to play, how to be good at soccer. My father used to be a soccer coach. I'm teaching Lighties how to drive cars. Now, as spanning is shy, I'm working in a vegetable garden, a community garden. We're growing spinach. We're growing umbona, umbila, maize. We're growing whatever. I work at a church. I volunteer at the local church. I volunteer at the local clinic. So you are working every day in Tonami Span. I'm picking up litter. But the problem is maybe I'm not getting paid. How do we ensure that you get paid for your work? And do you need to get paid in money? Or can you get paid in kind? I babysit for the old lady next door, and in return, she cooks me food. In return, she gives me access to her car. One of the quotes that go around globally, I think it would become famous in African American circles with your Dr. Umars, with your Minister Louis Farrakhan of the Nation of Islam, and then it would come to South Africa as well. The number of times money circulates in a Jewish community. They'll give arbitrary numbers, like maybe it rotates 6 times in a Jewish community before it leaves. And then in an Asian community, we're speaking Japanese, Chinese, Korean, they will circulate maybe 12 times before it leaves the community. And then they'd say that in a black community, it doesn't even last 5 hours before it leaves. You bring it to the South African context. You just got your grant money. You just got paid. As soon as you get paid, we are Pakistan, my friend, who Abdul, and you buy groceries. The money's just left your community. Or as soon as you got paid, you're going to town. As soon as you get to town, you pass by Pep stores. You need to pick up izinto ezimbalwa for ingosi yakho. The money's gone to Stellenbosch and Christo Visa. You go via a tavern, a bottle store. You've just given money to SAB, AB, InBev. The money's left the black community. Even if you're running something like Ishisanyam, when you have to go and stock your meat, are you stocking it from the community? No, you're stocking it from outside the community. You're running a car wash, those washing detergents, and you're stocking those from outside the community. So they'd speak about how money won't even last 5 hours in a black community. And I remember at some point saying, that's money. That's money. Are we able to quantify how much value circulates in a black community? The guy who gives ugogo a lift that should have been paid for but wasn't, in money. The young lady who's babysitting children for other working women. She should be getting paid in money, but she's not. The grandmother who's helping her grandchild or the child next door with her maths because she used to be a school teacher. She's not getting paid in money. These guys are that act as a neighborhood watch. Abashama up and down, but they know which house, who lives there. They know if something's going amiss, how to manage those things. My father, who would be coaching boys, ekasi, itiski. The people that are maybe feeding other people's dogs because they have hunting dogs there. The people that go hunting. All of those things, all lady that are feeding intwana in the neighborhood. All of these things that should cost money, but is not being quantified, and how much value circulates. Because I'm working in this community garden, and then we harvest carrots and potatoes. And we take those and we donate them to the local church, to Umfundis. And Umfundis donates some of that to the women that are babysitting children on behalf of others. And nowhere in that circulation was money quantified. And therefore we say that's a poor neighborhood because we didn't quantify the value. So we're not having the right conversations. And I started off by saying we're too data heavy in this country. And some of this data, you collect it, and then you come to these conclusions, and then you don't understand why certain things are not making sense. And I urge people that collect data, I urge community leaders to start having different types of conversations. Number one, how do we quantify value? Not money. How do we quantify value that, okay, what we're going to collect here is how many people show up to volunteer? How many people work in the community gardens? How many things do we harvest? How many kids are playing at DSK here? How many people are sponsoring their time, their resources, their skills, and quantify it in real time and say, okay, we have a new report. This is how many people, ekasi, are working. Yes, they're not working for money, but they are working. And then how many of them are working for money and how much? And how many of them are working for value? What is that value that is being quantified? Then we have a different conversation. And the people that do have jobs, it's not enough that you have a job. How much are you earning? And of the money that you're earning, how much of it is going to rent, to transport, to black tax, sending money home? And that might change the conversation. I'm going to raise 2 points that I've raised before, but I want to raise them as many times as necessary because they are fundamentally important to me. And the one thing I know is repetition is the father of learning. And you need to repeat a lesson as many times as needed until it sinks. I think it would be Joseph Goebbels who would run the propaganda machine for Adolf Hitler under Nazi Germany, who would speak about tell a lie, tell a big lie, make it simple, but repeat it over and over again until the person hearing it cannot but counter it with something else. Because if you spread like a rumor, if you spread a lie and it catches wind and enough people tell it, it doesn't matter. You can be speaking about AfriForum, speaking about white genocide. If enough people say it, the guys at AfriForum can say, but we never said that. It's like, aye, baba, yes. If you speak about Penuel not maintaining his kids, if enough people say it on social media, it doesn't matter what I say, how I count. I'm one person versus thousands, millions of people repeating the same lie. And then from there it sticks, etc., etc. So these two things for me are very important, and I'm going to repeat them as many times as is necessary for people to start getting it. South Africa is a company. Let me find my notes here. There's pieces that I've written about this. Very nice pieces, if I may add, especially on Twitter and on Facebook, but specifically Twitter. Did I say South Africa is a country? Bingtin. South Africa is a company. I don't know what I said. South Africa is a company, not a country. Let me read one of the pieces I wrote. South Africa is not a country. South Africa is a company. Companies have 4 role players. Number 1 is shareholders. Number 2 is a board of directors. Number 3 are employees. And number 4 are charity beneficiaries. That's a company. Any company anywhere in the world has got these 4 stakeholders, but these 4 role players. The shareholders who own a stake in the company, the board of directors who govern and manage the company, the employees who actually do the work that makes the money for the company, and then charity beneficiaries. We can later on speak about maybe the customers or the clients of that company, but it's not important for this point. Okay. The company that is South Africa became legitimate after the British formalized it into what we call South Africa today. So when the British came under the scramble of Africa and said, this piece of land here, this one is going to be ours, they formalized it into a company called South Africa. Other companies would have other names, Nigeria, Tanzania. I know Ethiopia was never colonized, Zambia, Angola, Mozambique. The Portuguese would say, this company here on this property is going to be called Mozambique. Imagine any company building that you know. You're like, say, that company is based there at this address. That business is based there at this address. The company owned by the British was based at this southern tip of Africa, and they decided to call the company South Africa. The shareholders, the people that own company South Africa, will fund any politician, any pastor, preacher, a church leader, any traditional king or chief, or any non-profit organization that will ensure that they maximize profits while keeping the charity guys at bay from revolt. It's really as simple as that. People buy a stake in a company because they're trying to make money, they're trying to make a profit. And they will pay whatever needs to be paid to the board of directors, the governors, what we call politicians, the parliamentarians. They will pay them whatever amount is needed to be like, my bro, Siswami, whatever it takes, concomitant action, whatever it takes, we need to make money from this thing. If you need us to fund a king somewhere, if you need us to fund a non-profit organization, if you need us to fund your army, if you need us to send weapons, if you need us to whatever, we're just here to make money. They do it. They will fund non-profit organizations and political parties to protect illegal foreigners who generate money for them, even if that money is from drugs or crime or other business interests. Because these shareholders in companies South Africa don't only make legit money from mining or from farming. Some of them make money from drugs. They're like, hey, Baba, we are killing it in South Africa. Company South Africa, the drugs we're sending, Mkwanazi was speaking about drugs coming from South America. The money we're making from prostitution, the money we're making from gambling, The money we're making from human trafficking. So if there's a politician that will make sure we keep making money, if there's a police commissioner or a judge somewhere, if there's a non-profit organization that will protect the slave labor we have, then undocumented immigrants, give them that money, chief. We need to make money. The workers, the employees, are more important than the charity beneficiaries. Even if those beneficiaries have a South African ID, all it means is that you were born in this company. Yes, they tell you that you're special, but you're not. The most special people are the workers. And that it doesn't matter where they come from. Germany, England, Dubai, Czechoslovakia, Argentina, it doesn't matter. Workers are more important. Thinking that being a citizen is more important than being a value-adding foreigner is delusional. Because what workers do is they make money. As a citizen, you feel entitled to free healthcare, free schooling. Where do you think that stuff comes from? It comes from money. Some of that money is foreign direct investment. Some of that money comes from loans taken from the IMF and the World Bank. Some of that money is money we've made from exporting to the rest of Africa, to China, to Germany, to America. Some of that money is generated by foreigners that are running businesses here. Some of those foreigners who take South African products and they send them to Zambia, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Mozambique, Lesotho, Eswatini, etc. That money is the money that feeds your poor kids, Lokshin. Those are the most important people, and it doesn't matter where they come from. If you are a black kid from the dusty streets of Ikaslago, your best way, the best route for you to become a shareholder, an equity owner in Company South Africa, is to get into the board of directors. Now, I mentioned the board of directors being politicians, but it could be the leader of a church, ZCC, Shembe. You could be a king, Misuzulu, Dalinjebo. Whether you're an employee, small business owner, or politician, you need to get into government and have strong links with government. Once you get to that board of directors, you then interact with the real owners of this company. Whether it's the British monarch, whether it's Trump and America, whether it's the Chinese, whether it's Putin and Russia. You get to engage with them because they have a vested interest in the resources of this country, whether it's mineral resources, whether it's agricultural resources, whether it's manufacturing or retail or whatever the case may be. You engage with them directly. It's difficult to engage when you're a charity beneficiary. When you're social welfare, why would Putin speak to you? Why would Trump speak to you? Of course, he even calls Africa a shithole. When you're a worker, you're just a worker. Doesn't matter what worker you have. You can be living in a nice flat in Midrand, in Sunnyside, in Durban. Doesn't matter. You're just a worker. There's a board of directors there at the top that interacts with the real shareholders. Once you become a member of parliament or a minister, or have them in your pocket, you can then start rubbing shoulders with the biggest shareholders to the economy/company. Then you need to get them to like you so that they are happy to allow you to become a shareholder along with them. This is where I'll speak a little bit about my frustration with Gayton McKenzie. So Gayton McKenzie, under the Patriotic Alliance, would be one of the politicians that would speak about how he wants power and how the ANC is not doing a good job and how undocumented immigrants must leave. Abahambe. He gets seats in parliament, celebrates, brilliant. I'm happy that Gayton McKenzie gets to sit in parliament. It's thanks to one of my votes. One of my votes went to Action SA and Herman Mashaba. My provincial vote went to Musi Maimani's Bossa. I'm happy that Gayton's there. I love Gayton. As he out, he has a G. Then there's this whole thing of a government of national unity. This grand coalition, your ANC, NET-DA, and others, of which the Patriotic Alliance would be one of the others. Now, all of a sudden, Gayton is speaking well of Cyril. My President Cyril Ramaphosa. The GNU is the best thing to happen to South Africa. We need everyone to rally behind the GNU, the government of national unity, is your best bet. And I'm like, IG, this is not why we voted for you. But Gayton McKenzie, unlike me, is not as emotional about politics. Gayton McKenzie understands the game. Gayton McKenzie understands it's like, say, I was a pandit, bruh. I was a criminal. Bengi ikhuzu. Jailbird. Myself, Kenny Gunyane came out, we dusted ourselves off and we're like, we're going to make this money. Whatever it takes. Became a book author, wrote books, went around promoting his books, would meet some of the parents of rich kids at private schools. They would invite him to work in security. And at some point, he'd get into the mining industry, which has made him a lot of money. And he was like, oh, this is the game. So at a very small scale, he became one of the shareholders of Company South Africa, but he wanted more. And he realized that, one of the best ways to speak to the guys that actually own Company South Africa is to get into government. Power, as he'd call it. So outside of working with Jacob Zuma, outside of working with the doctor, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, and then Cyril would win at the ANC, he decided to leave, break away Patriotic Alliance, and they're like, we'll use this as a vehicle to sit in parliament. And once we're here at the board of directors level, we can engage directly with the owners of this company. And he's been killing it. And in doing that, he realized, one of their favorite boys, the chairperson of the board, the head boy, Tumamina, send me, would be Cyril Ramaphosa. And he was like, oh, I need to get close to this guy. Because I need to understand why the guys at the IMF, the World Bank, the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, why people like Donald Trump, even Putin, Modi in India, Xi Jinping in China, Macron in France, and so many others are willing to listen to this guy. Everyone on the continent, even though he snubbed him, people like Paul Kagame of Rwanda, Museveni, other leaders on the African continent, they're willing to listen to Ramaphosa, like, oh, okay. So not only South Africa is a company, but all of these other countries are companies as well. And I can be a shareholder here, and I can be a shareholder in other countries. Because Abo Cyril, through Shanduga and their partnerships with Pembani, Remgro, African Rainbow Minerals, African Rainbow Capital, and others, are also shareholders in other companies on the African continent and abroad. So I think these guys, I need to befriend them and then befriend their handlers, their partners, their shareholders. Be it your Oppenheimers, your Ruperts, other investors from around the world, to be like, I want to use this platform to leave and become a shareholder like Patrice Motsepe, like Trevor Manuel, like maybe I'm Zikumalo or Saki Matozoma, to say, I have transcended politics. I am no longer a manager of the company, I'm a shareholder. The managers of Company South Africa, the parliamentarians and the ministers and other politicians, they have to ask Saki, Mzi, Patrice, the Oppenheimers, the Ruperts, Martin Moshal, your Christo Visas, and all these other, they need to ask them for funding and for support. And Gaten's like, I want to be there. If I can get there where I'm one of the big boys in Company South Africa and politicians are begging me for money, then I can start becoming that guy on the African continent. And who knows, maybe I can become global. Aliko Dangote, through his family, the Dangotes and the Dantatas in West Africa and specifically Nigeria, are big boys on the African continent. You've got the Sawiris, you've got the Dojis, you've got Mo Ibrahim and others. Big boys, the Mansours as well, big boys on the African continent. But some of them have gone global. Johan Rupert is a big boy in Europe. He can easily fund politicians in France, in Switzerland, in the United Kingdom, because his luxury goods company, Richemont, makes global money. Christo Visa makes money in Australia, in Europe. Abu Patrice, their interests have gone continental, global. Saki Matozoma's got operations in Australia. Mzi Kumalo's got operations in England. That's now where local politicians, may rest in peace, people like Doe Steyn, local politicians around the world are asking to sit with you to get money and favor. South Africa is just a company. The Afrikaners, who got this right after the Afrikaner board of directors, who came into power with the National Party, include people like Johan Rupert with his father, Dr. Anton Rupert, Christo Visa of Shoprite and Pepco, Yanni Mouton of PSG, Dostane, Insurance Empire with Double Auto in general, Hippo and the likes, and many others. They are shareholders today. Black people who got this right when the Black ANC became the board of directors include people like Saki Makozoma, Trevor Manuel, Mzi Kumalo, Tokyo Sehwale, and others. Those who unfortunately got it wrong include people like Jacob Zuma, Julius Malema, Jay Naidu, and others. And I'd like to think that they are trying to move past. I mean, Jacob Zuma would create Umkhonto Wesizwe, Julius Malema would have the EFF. If they are struggling to woo the other shareholders, they are maybe trying to get your Russias, your Chinas, your Indias, etc., to be like, please be our partners and our funders so that we can all be partners in company South Africa. And I close off this piece by asking, which role do you want to play in the company named South Africa? Oppenheimer's Anglo-American created the negotiated settlement template that the ANC and National Party would use at CODESA to craft a way forward for South Africa in the mid-1980s. Today we have the GNU, which is taking us into the future. Gavin Reilly, the CEO at the time, would task Anglo Secretary Clem Santa and Michael Spicer to create potential scenarios for the future of South Africa, the global economy, and their own business. Along with economist Michael O'Dowd and Anglo exec Bobby Kotsal. They pitched it to Anglo, then Mangosuthu Buthelezi, may he rest in peace, leader of the IFP. Then from there, all major businesses wanted the presentation. They presented to National Party ministers, they presented to the police, and eventually they would present to Nelson Mandela, who, while in prison, and to other politicians, business people, and stakeholders. They made a book. They made a video that became a bestseller, The High Road and Low Road, Potential Outcomes. It was this scenario planning that they used to twist the arm of the ANC and other liberation leaders to embrace the free market economy and abandon nationalization of land, banks, and industry, as envisaged in the Freedom Charter of 1955. After release from prison, Nelson Mandela would visit the World Economic Forum in Davos to meet Margaret Thatcher and be influenced by other global voices as well. Other ANC leaders visited the World Bank and the IMF. This is where the fight was lost and sold out. Oppenheimer's Anglo-American would literally write the playbook for how the 90s and democracy would unfold. Key players would be Cyril Ramaphosa, Thabo Mbeki, Paulo Jordan, Trevor Manuel, Ruth Meyer, F.W. de Klerk, Nelson Mandela, amongst others. If ordinary South Africans ever want to go back to the Freedom Charter ideals, they would need to co-opt another huge conglomerate to devise a new plan which can benefit business or stage a coup to overthrow the current South African government. Most parties at the top are funded by the Oppenheimers, using military assistance, maybe from nations like Russia and China. The biggest mistake Anglo and other big business people made was to give equity in their companies to black politicians instead of black business owners. People like Richard Maponya, Herman Mashaba, the taxi industry bosses, etc., were meant to be the real beneficiaries of economic transformation and not politicians. With that said, the economy will never improve until we give people real skills, especially in farming, manufacturing, and exporting, access to tools, access to land, access to funding, and to remove red tape. Yeah, I think I'll stop there. South Africa became a British American company. I mean, we've got British American Tobacco, which would work with Dr. Anton Rupert from his cigarette company, which became his cigarette company Rembrandt, which would become a huge industrial behemoth, Remgro, the Rembrandt Group. British American Tobacco. Johan Rupert would come in and Remgro would become diversified industrial in South Africa, and then he'd create Richemont. Anglo-American mining company, Ernest Oppenheimer taking over from Cecil John Rhodes, Barney Bonato, Thomas Cullinan. I forget some of the other guys. Anglo, British, American. Funded by the Rothschilds, the Central Bank, Bank of London, the Central Bank of England, which would be one of the prized jewels in the Rothschild dynasty. Funded by the Rothschilds in the UK, and then funded by JP Morgan in America, one of the men who built America, along with Andrew Carnegie, J.D. Rockefeller, a couple of other names as well. South Africa is a company, British-American company, looking to maybe diversify with BRICS into being an Indian, Chinese, Russian, Brazilian company. And one of the conversations we need to be having is, who do we want to be shareholders in this company we were born into? What do we want them to do for the workers here, for the charity beneficiaries here? Who do we want to be the board of directors? And how do we want this company to operate? Very important. You cannot be religious and cultural at the same time. Again, I apologize because if you watch my content, you've heard all of this a few times. I'm just reiterating for someone who's bumping into it for the first time ever. I want to see if I wrote notes around this as well, because I've got a brilliant video on this on the other channel, the Penuel Show. You cannot be both Zulu and Christian. And this is just an example because in South Africa, Zulus are the biggest cultural or tribal group. And then Christians are the biggest religious group in this country. Arguably, maybe 30 to 40% of the South African population is Zulu, or maybe falls under Nguni. And then arguably 80% of South Africa is Christian. You cannot be both Zulu and Christian. And there's a disclaimer that these are just two examples. I could have easily replaced Zulu with Sotho, Xhosa, Ndebele, Chivenda, etc. I could have easily replaced Christian with being Muslim, Jewish, Buddhist, etc. Religion, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, is a culture. It's a way of life. It speaks to a group of people and the values that they use to dictate how they live their lives. Culture, being Zulu, being Xhosa, being Sotho, is a religion, or at the very least has their own religious doctrine. If you're born KwaZulu, there are certain ways that you connect with the higher powers. There are certain rituals that you follow to connect with the higher powers, and there's a prescription on how to live your life from the higher powers. Nkulunkulu, Mvelinqangi, Kamata, Tiko, etc. When you compare these two examples of being Zulu and Christian, there are many similarities. Isaiah Shembe of the Shembe Church, Sonto Lama Nazareta, made a great move in trying to merge the two. But the problem is that he didn't create a new religion or a new culture. Christianity itself took in a lot of pagan rituals at the time to have the Christianity we have today. You cannot have both. Most of your beliefs and identity labels were not chosen freely or through love, but through brutal conquest, oppressive laws, or other atrocity. Africans did not vote for Christianity. They do not see it in other countries around the world and decide we'd like this. Clans in KwaZulu-Natal were not invited to join the Zulu kingdom. It would be through Ushaka, Mlilwana, Uskiti, Ilembe, who would go around conquering in battle to consolidate a Zulu kingdom that people pride themselves on today. The British didn't hand out pamphlets for nations to bow to the Queen and become part of the Commonwealth. They were colonizers. They were conquerors. It's very important to understand that, again, with cultural groups and religious groups, they have spread in areas geographically around the world through conquest, through certain individuals deciding that we want this to be the order of the day. And this is how people interact and engage and understand the concept of God, a creator. God, an overarching superpower that looks at how life runs for all creations. A being that dictates your everyday living, that has a prescription when it comes to raising children, dealing with the economy, how you dress, what you eat, etc. The reason I would raise this concept of you cannot be Zulu and Christian, or you cannot be religious and cultural at the same time, is because I do think that is one of the reasons that so many Black Africans are lost. I had an amazing sit down. So I want to find this gentleman's full name properly. I'm not going to give his okay, no, here's his full name actually. Pamanathan. He goes by the name Nathan. Marimutu. Nathan Marimutu. Brilliant brown of Indian descent, businessman, activist under the ANC from apartheid, who would introduce me to the ex-governor of Ghana. And we'd have a brilliant chat in Joburg about the conquest of African people and the future of Africa and where we need to get it right. I want to see if I can get this gentleman's name. No, I'm going to mess it up. It's not important, and I apologize to him for not referencing his name. What he would say is the many ways that Africans, in the many ways that Africans were defeated, with the taking of land, with the disruption of the economy and the forcing of an economic model, with religion as one of the operating models that were forced onto Africans, including Islam, by the way, not just Christianity, where Africans had their own belief structures, was this concept of identity. And he said one of the biggest fights that is not being had right now, where Africans want to rise and lay their stake in the world, is they are not fighting for their identity, either claiming it back before the scramble for Africa, or devising a new one that is created by Africans to say, this is who we are, this is what we believe in, and we go out into the world to say, we are proudly African and this is who we are. And look, you can obviously have sub-identities. You are Ghanaian, you are Nigerian, you are Malawian, I am Zulu, I am Igbo, I am whatever the case may be. We are not fighting for identity. When your identity, which governs the way you dress, the way you eat, the way you worship, the way you roll out healthcare, the way you engage with the sun, the way you engage with nature, the way you engage with animals, the way a man and a woman engage with each other, the way parents engage with their children. When you are infiltrated, the person that infiltrates can then break and destroy what you guys have and then put you on a plane that takes you so far away from who you are and so far away from your true wealth. Because when we speak wealth, we speak money, we speak land, but we don't speak identity as a form of wealth. There is a reason why black men, black women fight each other every day. There is a reason why black families are broken. There is a reason why black parents don't know how to engage with their black children. To a point where black children will crack jokes about the way their parents speak English, or maybe French in other parts of the continent. That's not how you pronounce it. Oh, your English is so bad. Your child is laughing at you about speaking a foreign language and not even your own indigenous language. Black Africans are sick, physically ill, because they are eating foods that were not naturally given by the African continent. They are importing foods and diets that are not for them. Black Africans are mentally sick because they are trying to hitch onto spirituality that was not designed for the African. If you look at some of the prescriptions of Islam, some of the prescriptions of Christianity, some of the prescriptions of Buddhism, Judaism, they were not designed for certain geographies. And I'm including now some of the pagan worship, including the white dress at a wedding, the worship, the celebration of Christmas with Santa, the celebrations of Easter with the bunny rabbit, etc. I'm not asking you to go back to be Zulu. I'm not saying forsake your Christianity. I'm asking you to look at where you are geographically, where you are in terms of the history of the world and the potential future. Look at your family's skill set. It would be Joshua Maponga who would speak about ancestral memory, what is in your genes, what was planted in your DNA by your forebears, whether it is being able to run fast, jump really high, be really good at solving problems, be really good at cooking, at farming. What are you good at? And which belief system best serves you? Because maybe being Sotho is not best for you, even as a so-called Zulu boy. Maybe being Xitsonga is not best for you. Maybe you should be Buddhist. We had Savia Sachi here. Sbu is his name, who would find comfort and meaning and alignment in a branch of the Hindu faith. It has acknowledged him, it has praised him, it has raised him to one of the highest levels globally in the faith. As long as you're worshiping two gods, as long as you're worshiping two masters, two belief systems that clash, where the Christian God wants you to see him through Jesus Christ and the crucifixion, and the beliefs of the Nguni people want you to see God through your ancestors, the burning of incense, of incense, impepo, the slaughtering of animals. And ngapha, the Christian God says, doing this is pagan worship, it's idol worship, and it is a sin. You will never have mental, spiritual peace. As long as you're buying into an economic model from the British, from Europeans, from the Americas, that makes them rich, and you're not buying into an economic model of, again, I'm using the example of the Nguni people. We can speak about the Sotho people, including Tswana, Pedi, etc. Your own economic model of saying our wealth is in our livestock. Our wealth is in our land. Our wealth is in our beads. Our wealth is in our music. Our wealth is in our clothing. Our wealth is in our indigenous medicine. You're never going to be wealthy. You will always be defined as poor. And they love defining you as poor because even our concept of land ownership is not based on their concept. Their concept has to do with private property and a title deed. Our concept had to do with kings and queens presiding over communal land. So our land ownership belongs to all of us. So I will always have a home. I don't need to quantify it on a piece of paper. People know who I am because they know ukuthi Penuel ulungela umlojo, unumfana kazwelakhe wena, uFinias. Unumfana kadansile, umyaka, siyakwazi wena. You will always have a home here. So you'll never be homeless. Our indigenous medicines, which weren't managing illnesses for pharmaceutical companies and the health industrial complex of private medication and doctors. Our indigenous medicines were saying we want to find the root cause of your illness and we want to remove it. Which is partly why we would have such a rich connection to music. Because what izangoma, ngoma, music, song, what izangoma, izinyanga would understand would be some of your healing is lifestyle based. So it needs vibration, sound. It needs fasting. We're going to Dr. Sibi now. It needs fasting and cleansing of the gut. It needs you to change your diet. Why are you eating bananas in winter? Your body's in Africa, in the southern part of Africa, you don't eat bananas in winter. It's not aligned to nature. In winter, we eat citrus. It's what the earth, the land gives you. You eat orange, you eat nanchi. But you're eating a foreign, and then you don't understand why you're sick. You're eating all these processed foods, and the indigenous medicines understood that. And I'm not, again, I'm comparing two, and I'm not necessarily saying Western medication is bad and whatever. I'm trying to say you must pick a struggle. and you must pick a belief system, because you can't have both. And these people that are like, I'm a Zulu Christian, you cannot be. You're swearing at one of those. You're either swearing at the Christian God, or you're swearing at uNkulunkulu and your ancestors. And where you were disrupted was in believing that you can serve these two things. Where you're going to work for Van der Merwe's company while you're wearing a brand from Germany and you're driving a car from China. And then you say you are working for your family, but you're working for other people's families, and you don't understand why your family is poor. You cannot serve two masters. Let me close with this one. These are just my random notes, by the way. And, we host many interviews, and because of you guys have shouted at me, and we've listened about the need for me to be quiet and allow my guests to express themselves, which is very fair, because a guest visits for an hour, 2 hours, and I'm here every week. And I've got other platforms as well. But I write these notes because I have to ventilate some of my thoughts on these things, because I obviously don't get much of a chance when guests are here. And it is important that I share my thoughts and my views, because I do have opinions. I do have thoughts. Myself, Khomotso Morube, Sizwe Dube, Tibugo Kibine, MK Yenzi, and the whole team at Tribal, we have some conversations around some of the episodes here. And some of these things never get out. We thank you, by the way. Just so you know, we love you. We appreciate you. Because of you, we actually have a platform, and our voices and our thoughts are heard. Thank you. Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, the African National Congress, the ANC, which is in coalition with the Democratic Alliance, the DA, and other partners, including the IFP, the PA, Freedom Front Plus, the PAC, Good. I'm not sure who I'm forgetting, and I do apologize. They are hosting a national dialogue. I think the DA said they're leaving it, worth 700 million rand. It's a waste of money. Money is probably going to be looted. On top of that, some of the people that have been invited are such a waste of time. Not because they are not great people. They are brilliant people in their rights, in the various industries they represent, their personal achievements, locally, continentally, globally. They are icons in various ways. Useless when it comes to the concept of a true national dialogue. Myself, Debs, and other people have been speaking about the concept of having a CODESA 2.0. To move on, to upgrade, to have a breakdown and a conversation around the future of South Africa, beyond what Nelson Mandela, Ruth Meyer, Cyril, and others had with the National Party and FW declared back then, before 1994. I've heard ex-President Thabo Mbeki speaking about the need for a national dialogue. I don't even think he's invited to this one. I stand to be corrected. Maybe he is. I've sat with General Bantu Olomisa under the UDM. I believe the UDM is also one of the parties to the government of national unity. He's spoken about the need of having a national dialogue. I've written my own list of people that I've thought would be really worthy contributors to a national dialogue, including names like Vusi Thembekwayo, Dr. Sizwe Mpofu-Walsh of SMWX, Dan Corder, Mighty Jamie. I may not agree with her politics. Ukatlego Moagi, I think is a name. Mike Sham, State of the Nation. These are podcasters that I'm raising, of course, but people like Omegji and Saul represent a voice. These are podcasters, of course. Then you can have people like Robert Marawa. I think is a deeply patriotic South African. We can throw names. I've got a list. It's written somewhere. Let me see if I can get it for you. We still have a bit of time. I think also importantly would be young people. I say this because in 20 years, A lot of our really senior politicians are going to be gone in 20 years' time. Zimasa Vabaza was some of the people I had here. Tsidi, Madia. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her surname wrong, and I apologize, from Eyewitness News. People like Tembeka Ngugaitobi, Clement Manyatela. I had about David Mashabela here. Someone like Nota Baloy gets bashed a lot, but has got some really strong patriotic views about the future of South Africa. Some of the legacy wealth kids moving into the future. Anton Jr. Rupert, the son of Johann Rupert. Jonathan Oppenheimer, people like Tlopi Mutsipe, the son of Patrice Mutsipe. Tutuzane Zuma, the son of ex-President Jacob Zuma. The future is people like Abo Julius Malema, Floyd Shibambu, who have not been invited. And the EFF has snubbed this national dialogue. Voices like Sihle Lonzi, Snao Tambo, Yomusi Maimani's Yomandi Samashego, another strong patriot. And there are many others. Just some of the names that I have here. People like DJ Sbu are very patriotic, etc. Part of why we needed a national dialogue is because we need to have a historical conversation about how South Africa came about. British colonization. Almost as a point of departure, are we happy? Are we happy with South Africa as a nation? Are we happy that the British unionized it and then later on it became a republic? Are we happy? If the consensus is, you know what, that's not a big deal, then we move ahead. In that conversation, we need to speak about, are we happy with the borders? Do we want to invite Lesotho to become part of South Africa? Do we want to invite Eswatini, Botswana, Namibia? Do we want to invite Mozambique? I know there's a huge issue with inviting Zimbabwe because of the influx of Zimbabweans, some of the clashes we've had with some of the so-called Afrophobic, xenophobic tendencies. But some of these other neighbors, specifically Lesotho, Eswatini, maybe Botswana, which I stand to be corrected, but I think was a part of Bophuthatswana under Umangope and the TBVC Bantustan states, Namibia. Do we want to be one maybe bigger nation? Do we maybe want to split into a smaller nation where we have the nation of KwaZulu, we have the nation of the Cape, we have the nation of maybe Venda, we have the nation of Sotho, which maybe may include Lesotho, Free State, parts of the Vaal, parts of Mpumalanga, etc. And say we're actually remixing this whole thing because we've had a dialogue and we've decided this is what we want. CODESA, I think, would stand for the convening of democracy in South Africa. Something like that. Let me get you the name because I know most people don't know it. The Convention for a Democratic South Africa was a series of multi-party negotiations in South Africa during 91 and 92, aimed at ending apartheid and establishing a new democratic constitution. The Convention for a Democratic South Africa. One of the conversations that the national dialogue would need to have would be, do we want democracy? Because maybe now we've decided, okay, maybe we're going to split geographically like this or we're going to leave it alone. Sure. Governance. Are we happy with democracy? Are South Africans happy with democracy? What has democracy done for Africa? Burkina Faso now becomes one of the shining stars, and Burkina Faso is currently not being run as a democracy under Traore. Muammar Gaddafi was running a brilliant Libya, arguably not under democracy. Same with Kagame's Rwanda. When we look at some of the nations globally that are killing it, the United Arab Emirates, the Emiratis, is a union, I believe, of 7 kingdoms. These are kingdoms, not democratic societies. Sorry, I just want to get something for you here. United Arab Emirates, also known as the Emirates, is a country in West Asia situated, it doesn't matter, made up of 7 emirates with Abu Dhabi as the national capital. We obviously speak about Dubai and the likes. Okay, not really important. Run by kings and kingdoms, by sheikhs. We had kingdoms. kingdom of maybe KwaZulu, kingdom of maybe KwaXhosa, kingdom of Venda. We're at kingdoms. Do we actually want democracy or do we want kings? If we don't want kings, do we want dictators? If we don't want dictators, do we want military leaders? If not military leaders, do we want mothers? Could we consider the idea of saying our governance structure is having a mother body? We could say something like a queen. I spoke about the United Arab Emirates. We could look at the British Kingdom, the United Kingdom. Yes, they have a prime minister and they're voting, but still, do we want a mother? Who is the mother of your nation? Which nation, which home is healthy without a strong mother? Where do mama uwini? Maybe part of the problem is we no longer have mother figures that are our guides at the top, where when the country is in turmoil, when there's an influx of undocumented immigrants, when there's poverty, we say, mother, please guide us. And mother, out of her love and her bravery, mothers get vicious when their children are being attacked. What should we do? And a mother says, let some of these kids in to eat. Get rid of some of these kids. We don't want them here. Or these are the people we should be working with. That should become a conversation. And again, I'm not asking Cyril Ramaphosa and this 700 million rubbish thing to do that. We can do that ourselves. We speak about the economic models we want. We speak about national identity, whatever that looks like, including things that may look flimsy, but that speak to your core. What is our dress code as a South African? It can't be the Springbok jersey, or can it? What is our national diet? What is our national anthem? What is our national music? That is ours, that speaks to us. Not a national anthem that is written as if it was written in Germany or in Russia, or something that you know is for Africa, because as soon as it starts, people start dancing. As soon as it starts, it has drums. How can you have an anthem in Africa that doesn't have drums? How can you have an anthem in Africa that doesn't have dance? But you say you are African. Which part of African music does this speak to? And I can tell you now, if we were to have real African anthems, you'd hear them in the way, you look at the All Blacks, the national rugby team of New Zealand. There's something called the haka, which belongs to the native Maori people. That is meant to be the anthem, because you see what happens to the body, the face. You're like, okay, the Maoris have arrived. The New Zealanders are here, boy. When the Zulus arrive with Indlam, with Ukita, maybe even things like Istatamia, Maskan, you're like, hey, the Zulus have arrived. When our national anthem comes, of which, of course, it's even a prayer under Christianity, that's not who we are. I think Uputi Umbuso Khoza would speak about, he'd even joke about how the first notes of the anthem are the Insi Wincy Spider. This is not who we are. Again, we're just a colonial project. We need to discuss these things so that moving into the future, my children, my grandchildren can be like, yes, that's what you guys did with our anthem. Aye. Everywhere we go into the world, when they're like, whatever we decide to call ourselves, Azania, South Africa, when the South African anthem is about to be sung, people get up and they're like, Exe, we're about to have something special, because this thing, in a piano, in a guitar, in a drum, hey, that's why a native South African would identify more with Ikwicho than with the anthem, with struggle songs, with toy toy, because you're like, this is us. Even when you speak about Abo Sophia Town, Ons Blomai, the Pansula culture, that's South African. Nkosi Sigelela, Morena Buluga, Eddie Blow, van onze hemel. And then sounds the call. Sick. Anyways, the note that I made here after this whole rubbish that I just said was, we need to speak about governance systems beyond politics. Outside of a national dialogue, a CODESA 2.0, or whatever you want to call it, a Lekgotla, an Indaba on the future of the southern tip of Africa, if we even want to call this continent Africa, we need governance systems. And we can start piloting some of them. I mean, we've got the kings, we've got churches, we've got businesses. Can we put a list of governance systems and say, we are going to pilot some of these and we're going to take the ones that make sense and we're going to spread them around the country? AfriForum as a model is a governance system. Oranje as a model is a governance system. Isaiah Shembe and what he was doing with Isonto Lama Nazareta was a governance system. The ZCC Church and how they move is a governance system. The Royal Bafokeng and how they move is a governance system. Which governance system is more important? That governance system must then engage global powers, must engage the people, and must ensure that the people are benefiting on a piece of land. Because governance, at least in this country, is about land. Cyril Ramaphosa is not the leader of Nigeria. He's not the leader of the DRC. He's not the leader of Egypt or Tunisia. He's the leader of a geographic piece of land. UMisuzulu under Ingonyama Trust is a leader of a piece of land. Orania, with US Stradom as the leader, is a leader of a piece of land. Even a business owner that runs a warehouse somewhere, Eguruleni there in Kempton Park near OR Tambo, all those warehouses there, there are leaders there of those places. Whoever runs Stain City, now that Doe Stain has passed on, there are leaders there. And those leaders must engage with powers for the benefits of the people. And we need to start having a conversation. And in that conversation, we need to speak about the power source of the national government in South Africa, which is tax collection. Because with tax collection is where they get to deliver services. It's where they have a budget to actually effect change. AfriForum, with their 350,000 members who contribute about 100 Rand a month, are collecting tax. When you tithe at the church, they're collecting tax. It may not be the Vatican, but that's tax. Unfortunately, uMisuzulu does not have a tax collection mechanism. He gets a stipend from the KwaZulu-Natal government. In Orania, I don't know if they have a tax there or where the people contribute. I know they've got their own bank. Once you've collected that, now you have delivery, service delivery for the people. Now you can effect change and say, no, we're not happy with how the economy is being run here. So we need to have that conversation around governance systems. I'm going to end this video here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I think I'm probably going to make another video like this. By the way, I've got like so many other notes that I haven't gone through, and I don't even need to go through all of them, but I think I'm going to make another video here. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I did 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Damn. I went just through 4 of the 14. Yeah. Maybe let me use this opportunity to welcome suggestions on how to improve the channel, how to improve our episodes, to ask you guys to please donate where you can to this channel. You can donate under this video. You can become a paying member. And please give us ideas, not just myself, but the rest of the team, in how we can use this channel to become a real influencer of society. How we can genuinely make an impact. And you're like, there was this crazy guy with black pen who at some point made this video. And then we gave him these ideas and we sparked something and we didn't know what it was going to be. And we can collaborate and do really, really good things. Shout out to the team. Looking forward to reading your comments. Penuel, the black pen. I'm out.